My friends, we have finally lived to see the day where I shall finally compare the Super manga version of Future Trunks to his Super anime counterpart to see which one does him better, which one is superior at least conceptually, which one is better in execution, which one utilizes the character better, and which one do I feel is the superior version of the character. This is not a power debate, this is a characterization comparison piece between the two quite wildly different versions of Dragon Ball Super, even if a lot of the same beats are very much the same. And this is a really fascinating beast because I can't think of any other character between the manga and the anime of Super that is so wildly different than Future Trunks. Like, the way he is utilized in the manga and the anime are two completely different beasts, and a lot of people have various different preferences for various other reasons, but so far, because the anime is like the bigger product, that's the one people are primarily, consuming Dragon Ball Super off of, and the manga is seen as kind of like this alternate universe offshoot. A lot of people, just kind of ignore the manga altogether, or they just hate anything the manga does differently from the anime. But I'm here to do something as much as I can of a fair comparison between these two versions, and this is going to be really tricky for me because I fucking hate his arc. I hate the Future Trunks arc. I think it's irredeemably bad. It's probably my least favorite Dragon Ball product ever. It used to be Resurrection F, but even F wasn't as such a big of a waste of potential as Future Trunks' arc was. And it's just scary how awful it is in both versions. Like, there are good things here and there in both versions, but overall, I have a bias against this whole thing, against Trunks in general. I think that his very introduction has led to a lot of story problems that easily could have been avoided if you just entirely cut him out of the entire series. Like, you could keep, Kid Trunks there, but Future Trunks, his whole existence, even ignoring the fact that I hate his arc from Dragon Ball Super, he's just a very problematic character, so this is going to be a really kind of tough one for me to say that I'm being 100% objective, because this guy's very existence causes a lot of problems and kind of breaks every story he's a part of. So yeah, I probably should just warn you guys that it's going to be hard for me to stay objective when I don't really like Future Trunks' very existence and his arc is really shit. So yeah, but like I said beforehand, the way the anime uses Trunks in comparison to the manga is scary different. The closest way I can compare it is the anime version of Future Trunks from Super is the episode of Bardock version, where everything is about making Trunks look as cool as possible. It's all about fanboying over Trunks. You can tell the people writing the anime are really, really excited about the fact that Future Trunks is coming back. For some reason, he's a very popular character, even though if you read the Android arc, he kind of really sucks. He's kind of useless throughout that entire arc, which I'm going to get to more in the manga section. But you can tell a lot of people who are writing this arc from the anime side were big fans of Future Trunks. They were hyped as hell they were going to get to write him. You can really feel that excitement. And excitement's not a bad thing. Excitement can lead to a lot of really good stuff. But as Warren Ellis has proven, that sometimes being completely just kind of detached from a franchise and just going into it to tell a good story just for the sake of a good story and not to service the fans, not to prop a character up, put him on a pedestal, logic be damned, can also work. And unfortunately, kind of like episode of Bardock, except potentially even worse, the anime version of Future Trunks is just the dude who does cool stuff. He gets insane power increases, he gets transformations and abilities that don't make sense or are entirely unexplained or some combination of the two. He's constantly doing some cool stuff. He's using the Gallic gun. He's fighting Zamasu Black by himself. He gets a transformation that's completely unexplained. He learns the Genki Dama because fuck logic. He learns the Mafuba in 5 minutes, even though it took Goku, a vastly better fighter than him, an entire night to learn it, and he had to do it over and over and over and over again without any rest whatsoever. So Future Trunks in the anime is just like Bardock in episode of Bardock, except I would argue even worse, where at least episode of Bardock, at least it tried to have a explanation for stuff. At least it tried to create some kind of reasonable context for why Bardock is the way he is in episode of Bardock. That's a bad story. It doesn't make any sense well, it mostly doesn't make any sense, but there are things in it that try to work. Like Bardock becoming a Super Saiyan because Barry almost died, they try to build it off as kind of like that Piccolo Gohan thing where Bardock gets attached to the little kid. It doesn't make sense for Bardock's character to care about Barry at all. It doesn't make any sense for him to not wipe out or enslave like the slug people in an episode of Bardock immediately, but at least they tried. At least somebody sat down and thought to themselves, okay, we need something to make Super Saiyan Bardock at least make like 1% sense, and they kind of succeed at that. Whereas Anime Future Trunks doesn't make any sense. Everything he does, every kind of power he gets, every kind of ability he does, there is no good context for any of them. Super Saiyan Rage has absolutely no context for it. The only thing we know about it is it's got blue aura and gold aura, so I guess it's maybe a god form, but there's no context for anything. Nobody ever sits down and says, yeah, like Trunks got like a new form, like what the hell was up with that? Whis never even says anything, oh, well, Trunks is, really powerful because of reasons, and so he gets a quasi-god form. Like, there's no context for anything Trunks knows, and Trunks is constantly put up on a pedestal, so even when Trunks fails, it never really feels like he fails anything. It always feels like whatever kind of obstacle he has gets kind of brushed under the roof because Trunks is really fucking cool, guys, and we want you to think he's cool. Like, Trunks has a bit of an existential crisis after Goku and Vegeta fail to save the future the first time. And then there's supposed to be like this really cool moment between him and Kid Trunks where Kid Trunks helps Future Trunks boost his morale, to give him that will to fight again. But it doesn't mean anything because it all happens off screen. Like, we don't see the process with which Kid Trunks helps his future self overcome his broken spirit. And so you might as well have not had that happen because it's entirely skipped over. It's actually a really good example of what Super does, where Super shows you the beginning, the end, and then fuck the middle. Who needs the road to the beginning and the end? Like, that's just for stupid losers who like good writing and stuff. Like, like a good middle act to show the progress of a character. That's lame. But okay, I'm not going to complain about Super. So yeah, Future Trunks is really, he is like cool. It's really hard not to watch him and think to yourself, wow, like this is kind of cool, but that's all it is. And if you put 5 adjacent seconds of thought into anything that happens to Future Trunks, you're just going to be left shaking your head and telling yourself, wow, if you people just took 5 minutes to maybe think this through better, this entire arc would make considerably more sense than it ever does, but it really, really doesn't. And the worst thing about the anime version for me, besides the fact that it annoys the shit out of me, is it's conceptually a lot more, I guess, interesting, or at least better than what the manga does. In the anime, they know that this is like Future Trunks' arc, and so they decide, okay, Future Trunks needs to be an active participant. He's the guy who needs to be in all the big battles. He needs to be there on the front lines. And the manga kind of does that, but the manga is much more in line with Trunks' actual characterization from the Android arc, whereas the anime is too busy, enjoying the fact that Future Trunks is here and then doing cool stuff with him, that there is no objectivity with the anime version. Like, I commend the fact that they, on principle, wanted to make Future Trunks an active participant in all of the fights, but it makes no sense. It really, diminishes everything a lot of other characters do, and I just, frankly, cannot defend it even if I conceptually find it a more appealing idea. The manga has a different problem, almost the exact opposite. See, the manga is, like I said, much more in line with how Future Trunks is in the original Dragon Ball Z arc that he appears in, because Trunks, if you actually go back and watch or read the Android arc, Trunks is kind of useless after the first time he shows up. Even killing Frieza and King Cold doesn't really matter because Goku from his timeline could do that too. So the only actually useful thing Future Trunks does in the entire Android arc is tell them about the android so that they can prepare about it, and maybe telling Cell about, the Room of Spirit and Time and how they're powering up so the Cell games can start. But besides that, Trunks is really useless. Like, every time Trunks shows up in a fight, he almost gets his ass kicked. Like, he tries to beat 1718, he fails, he gets his ass kicked. He tries to fight Cell, he fails, gets his ass kicked. He barely survives against Cell Jr., and then he dies. Super Perfect Cell shows up and kills him. So, Future Trunks, that's what I was talking about earlier on in the video, where a lot of people just like Trunks because of his, perceived cool factor, but if you actually read or or watch the story Trunks appeared in the Z section of Dragon Ball, he's kind of shit. He's useless. He's not a particularly good fighter. He's a dumb, stupid kid who doesn't really have much experience. Like, he has a lot of experience at surviving, but he's not actually good at fighting people, and those are two distinctly different things. So when the anime, and even to a lesser extent the manga, make Trunks into like this super badass Frieza-level prodigy, it doesn't work. It's like total glorification of the character because they like him, and because they like him, they're going to give him cool stuff. Logic and consistency be damned. Now, it's nowhere near as bad as the manga as it is in the anime. Like, everything Trunks does in the anime annoys the absolute shit out of me. But the manga, the worst thing the manga really does is that it gives him like an empowered Super Saiyan 2 form. But there is no Super Saiyan Rage, there is no Spirit Sword, there is no him learning the Mafuba. The only really kind of crazy thing Trunks does is that he learns Super Saiyan better than Goku and Vegeta do, which is annoying, but in comparison to the anime, that's nothing. That's kid gloves level stuff in comparison. And then there's that whole weird thing where he like has healing powers because he like did a dance of the Kai, which yeah, that's weird and was really kind of forced in to just explain why Goku and Vegeta can heal and fight a bit longer. But once again, that is small potatoes in comparison to the anime. But the manga version's problem is that Trunks is kind of really not a big active participant in his arc. Like, Trunks does do stuff that matter in the arc. He, of course, sacrifices himself to hold Black and Zamasu off, and I appreciate the fact that the manga actually shows what happens to Trunks when he's left alone at the hands of Black and Zamasu. I like the fact that it isn't like the anime where Trunks almost gets killed, then he gets saved, and then he gets brought back into a secret base, and it all happens off-screen, whereas the manga version actually shows future Trunks holding on, it shows him resisting, it shows his will and determination to win, and despite the fact that he is getting his teeth kicked in throughout that whole process, it is a good showcase of future Trunks' character, because despite the fact that he knows he's probably going to die, he has absolutely no fear, he has absolute faith in Goku and Vegeta that they're going to pull it off, and it is a legitimately good moment for him. He does some cool stuff in his fight with Black when he first shows up, and that is kind of more or less it. And then he, of course, does heal Gowasu. He does save Gowasu's life. He saves Goku and Vegeta from, dying from their, damage and wounds so that they can fight and they can survive longer. So Future Trunks is kind of useful, but the problem with the manga is that this is the Future Trunks arc, and so I feel like he should be a more active participant in the story than you're making him out to be. This is why I said that I like the anime better, like, conceptually, because they know that, okay, this is the Future Trunks arc, so that means that Trunks should be one of the big guns. He should be one of the people who's, like, fighting tooth and nail with the bad guys to save his future, because this time his future is directly in threat. It's not like the Android arc where Trunks is saving the past and then he's gaining experience so that he can separately save the future. No, this time it's just the future that is the immediate problem that has to be solved. And so that's why I like the anime better, because they want to make him a big active participant, but the problem is it doesn't make any fucking sense. The manga doesn't really have that big of an opinion of Trunks, which is weird because Toyotaro is kind of like a fanboy writer, so I find it really surprising that he didn't also do the anime route where he just gives Trunks cool stuff to do because reasons, and it is more keeping in line with Trunks' character, but I feel like this is another really good example of the manga and the anime's problems, where the anime takes one extreme and the manga takes another extreme, and I feel like if you combined the two principles behind these two versions of Future Trunks and you made a third, like, united version that gets the best elements of both, I think you would legitimately get a really good character. You would have a character who is, an active participant in the story, and his participation makes sense. And to the manga's credit, it tries to the best of its ability to explain the various vague dots that Toriyama sets out to do to the best of its ability. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. It's all kind of a really big, complicated mess that we could get into. So another problem with the manga version for me is that the manga The manga is so focused, I guess, on just making as much sense as it can, given the fact that they have Akira Toriyama, the worst planner of all time, plotting out this whole series, that it all feels like a big exposition dump, and the manga is, I feel like the manga is a bit too adverse to grandiosity. Like, once again, this is another, extreme thing where the anime is all spectacle and bombast, and the manga is absolutely no spectacle and bombast, and I feel like you need a good balance of the two. That there are some moments that should have some grandiosity and bombast and spectacle to them, but that doesn't mean that they also can't make any sense. It really does feel like Dragon Ball Super hasn't figured out that like a big franchise blockbuster can be smart and awesome at the same time, so that is kind of sad. And like I said, if you combine the manga version of Future Trunks with his anime counterpart, you would legitimately have a really good character, I feel, where he's actively participating, but what he's doing makes a lot of sense. And like I said, the manga version's overall problem, not just with Future Trunks, is the fact that it's so focused on making sense and trying to connect the dots and make everything work, that a lot of the story just feels like forgettable. It all feels like big, overly long info dump expositions between characters instead of an actual story. So that is kind of the problem with Future Trunks' character as well, where he's just kind of bland and forgettable in the manga despite doing a couple of interesting things here and there. So, which version is better? I don't know. I don't know. The anime version pisses me off a lot more, but I like it conceptually. The manga version makes more sense, but it's just kind of so bland and forgettable and unremarkable in any significant way that I can't really bring myself to call it better. So I'm just going to give it a tie this time. I really am. Like, these two things are good and bad for various different reasons that are kind of the exact opposite of one another, and I just really can't give a concrete winner. I think, like I said, if you combine these two versions, you would have a legitimately great product, but as it stands, I feel like they're both bad for various different reasons, and they're almost exactly the opposite of one another. So yeah, this time it's a tie. I don't overly prefer one version over the other. They're both kind of shit for different reasons, and that's kind of like my final verdict. So, which version of Future Trunks do you prefer, the anime or the manga version? Please comment and like down below, and I'll hopefully see you next time, guys. Bye.